Hey everybody, and welcome to week 15 of our piano adventure. Today we're going to start with a rhythm warm-up based on syncopation. Now in this unit there's this video and two more left before we move on to the next unit, and in that unit our rhythm warm-up will be changing and we will start taking a look at the triplet and the 16th note layers. Alright, so we have a few more videos left to sharpen up our 8th note syncopation, and then we will be moving on to triplets and 16th notes in unit 4. We're also going to be looking at our 2 octave scales today. We're at the bottom of this circle. All right, and then we're going to take a look with our sight reading today at something that I wrote, which is an etude for the left hand. So we'll talk about what etudes are and what it can do for our left hand. All right, but without further ado, let's head on over to the drum and get rhythmically warmed up. All right, here we are on our week 15 rhythm warm-up. Now we have this video and 2 more left in this unit where we'll be looking at syncopation. And then starting in unit 4 with 4-note chords, we will begin looking at the triplet and the 16th note layers, all right? So I think we've all gotten pretty good at 8th note syncopation by now. We've got this one and 2 more weeks to go. And then just as a sneak preview, we will be looking at those triplets and 16th notes soon. So get ready for that. But today we're going to start for our week 15 on line 1. Our metronome is going to be 50 BPM and it's going to represent the downbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, switch your hands, 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and top line, 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All right, let's move on to line 2. We'll speed our metronome up to 55 BPM, and this will now represent the upbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and switch hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and top line, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All right, let's look at line 3. And now our metronome will go down to 30 because it's going to be on halftime. We will be going at 60. That means that the metronome will now represent the upbeat of the 1 and the 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, top line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. That one's a little sparse, right? You really have to make sure that you've got that beat internalized for that one. All right, now we're going to turn our metronome up to 35 BPM for the very last line here today. Again, it's at halftime, so we will actually be going at 70 BPM, and now the metronome will represent the second and the fourth upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2. Change your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3. Top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. All right, let's head back over to the piano. All right, let's take a look at our 2 octave scales. Now remember, we are at the bottom of the circle, so with both G flat and D flat, although there's a lot of black notes in there, remember it's actually very easy because they both use all 5 black notes, and therefore you really only have to remember 2 notes. Now, just like all of the scales that we've played so far, these scales are just alternating versions of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the thing that makes this a little hidden on the black note scales is that a lot of times we start in the middle of one of the series of fingers. Notice how a lot of these are cut off at the beginning, right? But once you start going multiple octaves, you'll see how the pattern lines up and is still just going in groups of 3 and groups of 4. Let's take a look at G flat major. We're going to start with our right hand, and it's going to go something like this. And then with our left hand, it will look like this. And when you put your hands together, it will look something like this. All right, don't forget to go as slow as you need. There's no shame in taking it this slowly at first if you need to. All right, now moving right along, let's take a look at our D flat major scale. All right, so our right hand alone will look like this. And our left hand will look like this. And then let's go hands together. All right, now you'll notice I really like these scales. I think these are honestly 2 of the easiest ones that there are. And in fact, whenever you want to play really fast, you know, they really just fall under the fingers really easily. You know what I mean? So these scales, as you get more advanced, can become good material for doing really fast runs on, okay? Now let's end things today with these 2 octave scales with A flat major, all right? So the right hand will look like this. And the left hand will look like this. And hands together will look like this. All right, let's take a look at today's sight reading. So today I wrote something called an etude, all right? And an etude is sort of a mix between a piece of music and an exercise, all right? Now there are some great etudes out there, and a lot of famous composers would write entire books full of etudes, and some of those etudes could be very beautiful, and people will play them as pieces of music, right? Now, a lot of etudes are very boring and they sound like exercises, and this one's all right, okay? But I wanted to address a few things today in this etude. First of all, we've been looking at 2-octave scales, which means we're trying to get out of our comfort zone of the middle of the piano and we're trying to stretch it out another octave, right? And so in the sonatina that we did last week, most of the 2-octave scale and the relocating of the hand was all in the right hand, right? And so I wrote this etude to kind of turn the tables and give our left hand some experience moving around the keyboard while the right hand did a simpler accompaniment, all right? One of the other things that this etude is going to work on today is the key of A flat, all right? You know, the key of A flat is a little funky because, you know, it's the very first scale on the circle that comes after the 3 scales that have all 5 of the black keys. So we've been on autopilot from B, G flat, and D flat. You're on autopilot because you don't have to think about the key signature. You just know it's all 5 black keys. And A flat is the first scale that you have to start thinking, okay, now I have to remember 3 white keys and 4 black keys, right? And so, you know, the best way around that and the best way to learn that is exposure, right? So while we are working on our left hand moving around, we're going to be working on our A flat major scale. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about today is going to come up in the harmonies, all right? As you'll see, there's a lot of ledger lines. And sometimes when people see those ledger lines, your eyes immediately glaze over and you go, oh no, I'm not going to read that. But you can read this. It's very easy, even though it's written up top. Once we figure out what it is, and this is why we learn chords, and this is why we learn to recognize these things, you don't even have to read and count those lines and spaces because you just know what the chords are, and you just know that because they're written up there, which means you do them in a higher octave of the piano. But these are nothing to be afraid of. They are chords, they're very easy chords, and now we're going to take a look at exactly what chords they are, okay? Now, I went really easy on our chords today, all right? This is some really easy stuff. We're not really going to have anything more than the 1, all right? So here we have our 1 chord, and we're going to move up to our 4 chord, which is a D flat. We're going to come back to our 1 chord, which is the A flat, and then we're going to go to the 5, all right? Super easy today because we really want to focus our brain on our left hand. We don't want to be thinking too much about what's going on in the right hand. So let's make it as easy as possible. We're going to be using chords that you can use inversion blending on, and we're going to be having them spelled out in half notes. All right, so again, you have your 4, you have your 1, and you have your 5. Now, one theory concept that we can talk about today is that when you are using the very basic notation of the 1s, the 4s, the 2s, and it's functioning like that, we call that diatonic, all right? So this is a perfectly diatonic progression. It is operating completely within the key signature of A flat. However, in these next 2 measures, you will see that we have a lot of accidentals written in, which means suddenly we are becoming non-diatonic, all right? And that's kind of where the interest for this piece came from. I thought to myself, okay, I want it to be easy, but I don't want it to be so boring that it sounds completely diatonic the whole time. So I'm not going to think about these chords right here in terms of the key using 1, 4, 5. Let's just name what chords they are and we'll know that we're using them, all right? So we're obviously going to start with our A flat chord, but this is a cool sound that I really like, and so I'm kind of going to introduce you to this sound today, and at the very end you'll see why we like this sound. But what we have is we have an A flat chord, we have a B flat chord, and then we have a C chord. So what we're doing is we're just playing 3 different root position chords, all right? And they're all a whole step away, all right? And then we're gonna walk back down to our B flat, back down to our A flat, back up to our B flat, back up to our C, and back down to our B flat, and this produces a really cool sound, which we'll hear in just a moment, all right? Now, continuing back, we're gonna wrap up this part and get to a new part where we're going to return to being diatonic. So that's why pretty soon, as we see, we have the 1 and we have the 5. Now, oh no, ledger lines, right? But we know we're just using the 1 and the 5. We know that at this point in the composition, we're just taking exactly what we did in this 1 measure and we're putting it up 1 octave, okay? So we know that this is the 1. We know that's an A flat chord. We know that's a 5 chord. We don't even have to read it because we just know it, all right? Now the left hand will continue to ascend whereas the left hand will stay in that position of the 1 and the 5. All right, now we have the 4, we have the 5, and we have the 1. Back down to the 5, back down to the 4, back up to the 5, and guess what? Here we have our A flat chord, up to the B flat chord, C, back down to B flat, and finally we end on a C chord, okay? How funky is that? You'll hear why. This is definitely a musical cliche, and as soon as we play it, you'll recognize it, okay? Let's put our hands on this. We'll start with our right hand, and we'll put it in this A flat position. And if we've been doing our inversion blending, this should be very easy. Back to the 1 and the 5, just going from the 1 to the 4, to the 1, and to the 5. Now here's where it gets fun. We have our A flat chord, B flat chord, C chord, B flat chord. We're kind of breaking all the inversion blending rules here because we're lifting our hand up and just putting it into root positions, but that's okay. A little non-diatonic progression never hurt anybody. Now we're going to go up an octave, do that again. Do it one more time. Now here's our 4, up to the 5, and the 1. Back to the 5, back to the 4, the 5. Now listen to this and tell me if you don't recognize it. There we go. Oh, and what do you know? It looks like we actually walked back down to the A flat there. Sorry if you have been going crazy for the past minute while I've been have that up there. Okay, so now let's take a look at the left hand, and this is what this piece is really about. So we're going to start down here, and it starts pretty simple. I would definitely recommend following the fingers that I give you. Take it nice and slow if you need to. We're really not doing anything here that is not within the scale. Now we're going to start moving octaves. Don't forget to repeat the do at the top of each octave. All right, so definitely you're gonna want to look at the finger suggestions that I give you there. All right, there are a few areas where you're gonna have a repeated note, all right? So don't get in the habit of playing up a pure scale because, for example, when you reconnect the octaves, you're gonna be playing A twice. You've got 2 A's here, and watch out, you have 2 E flats right here, all right? So you're going to want to watch out for that. If you follow the finger guide that I wrote on here, it will get you in the right place. The only thing that I do want to talk about that might be tricky is right here. These 2 A flats are exactly the same, okay? So you can literally put 2 of your fingers on the same note. Your head won't explode. Your hands won't fall off. You can put 2 fingers on the same key and push it down. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just use 1 finger, depending on which hand you want. But this happens, okay? Sometimes our hands play in unison, and it is perfectly okay, so don't let that throw you off. Let's try to put these hands together. There we go. Now don't forget to take your time, go as slow as you need. Thou shalt practice slowly. All right. If you'd like to purchase this sheet music, the rhythm warm-ups, or any of the outlines or more, you can do so through my website, pianodojo.com. Next week we'll be doing our last inversion blending table, and I'll see you then. Happy practicing.